of the Gauntlet, what are really like the main things that you really focus on?
Well, again, just like with my checklist, I asked myself, what business characteristics do I find the most appealing? A wide moat, great management team, good Glassdoor ratings, optionality, the ability to expand margins over time, et cetera, et cetera. And I added those things up. The Gauntlet is the exact reverse of that. It's what business characteristics do I find to be really unappealing? And this is created through my own blunders over time, as well as observing other businesses and their blunders over time. So I have things on here like accounting irregularities. You see something wrong with the numbers, how can you possibly trust anything? So to me, when a company says, we have to restate our financial accountings, it's an automatic sell, and that company is dead to me for life. Like nothing else matters. So when I see accounting irregularities, I subtract 10 points. It should be minus 100, but it just is what it is. The other one is customer concentration. And man, did I wish I knew this earlier in life, but some companies depend on just a handful of customers for the vast majority of their revenue. And that makes things really risky, because if that one customer, for whatever reason, decides to buy less or shift their habits to somebody else, that just blows a hole in the company's income statement and the margins and the potential and everything. So that is a binary decision in many ways that can bust a thesis around a company. So I subtract points up to 5 points if one customer is more than 20% of revenue, and I'll do minus 3 points if a few customers are, say, 10% of revenue or so. Then I also think about the industry itself. Is the industry itself at risk of being disrupted in time? It doesn't have to be disrupted now, but is this industry at risk of being disrupted in 10 years? I wouldn't buy any automaker right now, no matter how cheap any automaker would be. I wouldn't touch any of them, because I think the entire industry is going to be disrupted in the next 10 years. Same for any meat producer, the same for any utility or anything to do with fossil fuels. Those industries to me are actively being disrupted, and I don't want to touch them no matter what PE ratio or dividend yield you throw at me. And then there's things like shareholder dilution. If a company is regularly doling out extreme levels of options to its employees, I don't like that. I want an acceptable level of dilution. So if the share count's rising at 5% or more annually, I deduct points for that. Then there's things like if there's a outside force that the company relies upon for success. Again, this is when I learned the hard way. I was a big believer in gold, oil, silver, those hard markets, and I thought that businesses that played into them would do well over time. Well, it turns out it doesn't matter how awesome your gold company is. If the price of gold goes down, your business is going to be really hurt. And that is a factor that is completely outside of the management team's control. So it's like, business is hard enough. I also don't want to have to depend on luck too. So if a company has an outside force, like a commodity price is dependent on success, I subtract points for that. Same thing with like banks and interest rates. It's just an outside force that I want to subtract points for. And then there's other things like, I don't like growth by acquisition. I would rather a company grows organically, so I subtract points for that. I don't like it when 75% of the sales are in foreign countries. That does wonky things to like currency rates. I don't want to invest in companies that have headquarters in jurisdictions around the world. That might be a little bit riskier. So there's just a list of things like that, and I subtract points away from the score to, again, get me a final number that I can compare to another company so I can make decisions.
Gotcha. So do you think, do you have a section on competition, or is that pretty much dealt with in the industry disruption? And then also in the first part, you have the top dog and the leader. So do those two things sort of do the job on competition?
Yeah. And in general with competition, if a company has a moat, and it's in a industry that is growing, competition is something you should always look at and consider, but it's not as important to me because some industries and some markets are going to produce many winners. There's not going to be one cybersecurity winner. There's going to be lots of cybersecurity winners. There's not going to be one SaaS winner. There's going to be lots of SaaS winners because the business model is so attractive. So I don't specifically address competition directly, but I think by looking at the moat, and as you said, the top dog and first mover, as well as the industry in general, I think it's covered.
Gotcha.